Good afternoon, everybody. This is Dee Reinhardt with Illinois WorkNet. Today we have our technical assistance session. And just to remind everybody, I've got 68 people on the call right now, 69 people on the call right now, and I've got 56 people that have checked in on the attendance poll. So if you have not already done that, please do that. And we've got Brandon is going to try to share today some stuff. But before he does that, I just wanted you guys to see on my screen that I found and manipulated a worksite agreement that Brandon has approved that is a fillable form that I will upload to the partner pages when we are done with this call, and you can use this for your worksite agreements. It has all of the information on it that you need to review to have your worksite agreement be approved, or an approved version. So on here, these forms are text boxes. We've got a couple of check boxes in here. We've got space for 3 different work sites for a company. So if a lot of times it's only one work site, one company, but just in case you have multiple work sites for a company, it also has a box to fill out of the staff at that location with acceptable background checks, because working with youth, they have to have a background check so that we're not putting our youth at risk. And then we've got a paragraph about background checks. We've got a policy, company policy about employment decisions based upon background check results that needs to be filled in. We need a signature from the work site, an agency signature. I may take this text box out because you've got to just sign it. And then you could plop in a signature image if you have it. Who is working and when, and what their anticipated hours are, if they have an hourly wage, what the subsidized wage is. Terms and conditions of successful probationary employment, thereby ensuring when these terms and conditions are met, the youth's employment may continue under the employer unsubsidized. What is their policy about that? We've got some yes or no boxes about those different pieces, and then we've got actual description, and I'm not going to read all of this, but it is available for you to use. As I said, I will try to have this uploaded to the partner resources page right after we're done with our meeting. Are there any questions about this worksite agreement?
No, but I'm going to do a dance for you because I'm really happy and excited.
All right.
Are those
Where can we
background
get that
checks?
worksite agreement?
Who said what?
I was saying, where can we get that worksite agreement?
It's going to be on the resource page on the DHS partners site as soon as we're done with the meeting, because I just got this turned into a fillable form. Like, that's why I was only on the meeting at 1:24, because I just finished it. So,
Okay, all right.
All right.
On those background checks, do they have to be done annually, or once you do it for staff, you're good for a bit?
I would think that once it's done and they don't do anything else, that a background check would be sufficient, because if they're doing something while they're in employment with the company that requires or that actually entails improper activity, they may not be employed there any longer. So,
Okay.
I mean, that's my assumption. Brandon, do you have something else you want to say about that?
That's correct. The background checks would be done, in the beginning, and then when there's new staff, you obviously would have to do a new background check. But if the same staff is there, then you don't have to do it again.
So the next cycle, we don't have to go through that again. Okay.
Right.
All right. Let's see here. We've got a couple of. Bernard asked for worksite agreements if we have created linkage agreements. I'm assuming that I need to send them this instead, even if I met with them in person. Bernard, do you want to like open up your mic and explain a little bit more?
Yeah, so as I was looking to secure prospective employers, some of these employers I met with on site, and I wrote up my own linkage agreement with a lot of this information in it. And, you know, when you're on site, you get them there, you know, and they sign whatever I had signed. Do I need to use this in place of that? Like, is this a mandatory sheet that's gonna like data is gonna be extrapolated as for our PPR, or
No.
are we free to use what we already have?
You're free to use what you already have. That's what we've been doing up to this point, is providers have used their own. Dee's making it a lot easier for you in the future if you want to use this.
Oh, and I just realized I missed a box, so I have to fix this now before I move on with it. Peoria Public Schools says we already have a worksite training agreement and an MOU. Do we need to use this too? And as I guess, Brandon, my thought would be as long as it has all of the required information, they're cool.
Right. I mean, as long as you're following everything that section of it says employer agreement in the funding notice, and it lists exactly what needs to be in there. And as long as you have that in your worksite or employer agreement, you're fine. Also, it's only for subsidized, it's only required, it's only mandatory for if you have a subsidized employment at that worksite. If it's all unsubsidized employment, it's just recommended, but it's not required.
And let's see. Ladon, you're welcome. Thank you, Ladon. She's asking the same question. And I'll tell you what, we are looking for a sample MOU to use for training agreements with training sites for actual learning. So if one of you would like to send your MOU to me and copy Brandon, then we might use yours as a template as well. Like this particular worksite agreement was from disaster relief thing from DCEO, and I just modified it based upon what we had. So I see that Ladon and Peoria both have an MOU that they already use. So if you guys would like to email those to us and let us take a look, if you don't mind, we can create a template for others as well. Shannon says, do work sites need background checks if the youth are over 18? The youth participating in the program, I bet you mean, right? So Brandon?
Yes, it'd still be yes.
Okay. And Camilla says, or D can create, or can D create a fillable MOU? Yeah, I can do that. I can do that as long as we've got a template that everybody has. Beach says, yes, please. Camilla says, please do. Okay, so I need to have an MOU that we can review and see if it fits the bill, and then we can go on from there. And as I said, I missed this box right here, so I do have to fix this, and then I will upload it. So it might take me a little bit longer than right after the meeting to get this uploaded.
Hey,
All right.
D,
Yes,
Brandon.
yes.
Okay, this is Janice.
Hi, Janice.
Hi, I want to go back to the background checks for youth under the age of 18. I just want to make certain, because I thought in the past we've always said 18 and over would have the background check, pretty much because you're not going to get information.
No, the background check is for the staff at the work site.
Okay, because when you said something about you mean in the youth, so I want to make sure. Okay, no, we're
Right.
fine.
Right, so anybody on your facility and any employer work sites all have to have a background check if they're going to be working with the youth.
Okay, yeah, no, we got that. And we also do the background check if you're 18 to 24,
Okay.
just because of some things. Okay, thank you.
All right, any other questions about the worksite agreement? All right.
Yes.
Yeah, oh, okay.
Yeah, just go over the background check again, Brandon, too. If a company that we're working with, the person who supervised the individuals, they would have to have a background check, or would they have could the company have a policy that these people have went through background checks, a policy of background checks? And we have, and we prove that they've been, they have actually a background check in their policy, and these people have the background checks. Because we're going to be working with a couple of fairly medium-sized companies.
So I think what you're asking is, well, this is my interpretation of what the answer needs to be for you. And Brandon, correct me if I'm wrong, but anybody that works with a youth at a work site that you arrange must have a background check if they work with the youth.
Correct.
So it's not just for us, the provider, we have to dictate that the company's people have background checks too. Can we do that?
Yes.
And that's subsidized or unsubsidized, either or, it doesn't matter.
It's definitely for subsidized.
Right. It's just recommended. If you look in your contract, it's required for subsidized, recommended for unsubsidized.
Is there a basic, I'm sorry, is there a specific background check that we need to do? Does it need to be FBI, state of Illinois? Does it matter?
There's a couple of sites that you can kind of check on your own. I can try and find those links and put them as a resource on the partners page as well. One of them is a state database for Illinois. The other one is national, but the challenge is you need to know some names and stuff like that. So let me find those links and I'll add those. Sabrina says, sorry, Shannon, did that answer your question? Brandon, is there a specific background check that's required?
No, not that I'm aware of, but I wrote that down as something to ask, but I don't think there is. It just says background check.
Okay.
So Brandon, I guess to the gentleman's question, if they can provide you a policy or something that says that their people took background checks, is that acceptable? Or do we need to be having the results of the background check for each employer?
So Sabrina asked, can we provide the background check the company has on file for employees? You guys don't have to demonstrate the background check. It just says here, staff at this location with acceptable background checks. So who's going to be working with the youth and who has a background check? And then what is their policy for employment decisions based upon background check results? So say they have an employee who shows up as I think it's a class 1 felony youth sexual assault kind of thing. What's their policy on that participant or on that employee? What's their policy on that? That's what you've got to put in here. We don't need to necessarily see the background checks. Does that make sense?
Yeah, makes so much more sense.
All right.
Yes.
Mhm.
So then LaDon says, are they providing us with the background checks or verifying they have the background check in their own company files? Verifying they have them in their company files. What if the companies that we are working with already have results for the employees that will be working with our students? All right, Project Vision, I'm not quite sure I understand your question. Already have results for the employees. Well, if they already have results, and as long as they're positive, meaning there's nobody with any child abuse or child porn or any of those, murder, all of those kind of things. Okay, so as long as they're positive results, then that's fine.
D, I
Yeah.
just want to make sure, because I know during the fiscal and administrative review that they actually asked for, verification that the background checks have been completed. So we literally, each time we've had one, we've had to show, that we were able to provide that information, not so much that we had to show the outcomes, but be able to show that, yes, it was completed.
Was that for your own employees?
That was for the employees of, last year was the CSYEP program. So when we had the fiscal and administrative review this year on that program, then yes, that was part of what was requested.
For your employees or for the worksite employees?
For our employees and yes, okay, go ahead.
So that's, for your employees is different than for the worksite employees, I would think. Brandon, you want to clarify that? Or do you need to ask somebody else the question?
Right, for your employees, definitely. And also that can be an allowable expense. You're allowed to pay for those background checks.
Okay.
There's no way that, like say you have youth that work at Toyota and there's 10,000 employees. There's no way that you're going to be able to show all those background checks.
Yeah. Okay. Okay.
But
Thanks.
Toyota has a background check policy.
Yes. Yes, and that, okay, and that's really, yes, because I was thinking of in terms of, and I'm just gonna say the school district, because we have students that we're placing at the school district, but
Oh,
we
and
have,
every school district is going to have a strict, they do FBI and everything.
yes, okay, so we will never be asked for the background checks for site workers or for placements.
Right. I don't know how they could, because
Okay.
that's not even something that we would pay for, that we would do.
Okay. Okay, thank you.
Mhm.
So question, for an organization that has staff coming in for the summer that work in the school districts who have already had background checks, would that suffice for the organization for the program, or would they have to have an additional background check?
Yours is what the initial one is fine, because like I said earlier, if they do something that would show up on a background check, they're probably not going to have the job anymore.
Exactly. Now, so do we have to have copies of those background checks in our possession, or just as long as we can prove that they went through the school for the background check?
If they're your employee and they are on your payroll and they are working with your youth, yes. If they are with the work site, no.
Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome.
And I can tell you, Dee, we actually did, well, we've had that encounter last summer as well as this summer. And the employees are usually able to go to the school district and request a copy of their background checks. And then we just have them on file and not do a new one or have a new one completed.
Right. Somebody in the chat mentioned the National Sex Offender Registry to check for background checks. And there is actually a link for that, and that's one of the ones that I was going to try to find for you. And Shannon says, will a copy of their background check policy suffice if it's for the work site? Yes. Cecily says, are the companies, employers we are working with also required to do mandated reporter training, or is a cleared background check sufficient? Brandon?
The background check, we don't require the training.
All right, any other questions?
And just one more, the one main thing about the worksite agreement, that's why you have it. That's why it's, you know, recommended even for unsubsidized employment, because that worksite is agreeing to having a background check policy, or the fact that they have done background checks on their employees there. But if you don't have a worksite agreement with them, then you can't say that they signed off on that.
All right. Okey doke. Any other questions about the worksite agreement? All right, let's move on. Brandon, if you want to share your screen, I will stop sharing mine.
Okay, I'll try this here.
This is an experiment, folks. Thank you, Tammy.
Okay, is it working?
It's starting. There we go. You're up.
Okay, so you wanted to discuss the PPR, the new PPR report that was unveiled, I guess the night before the quarterly meeting, and then you guys talked about it some during the quarterly meeting. But you wanted to discuss it more in detail, so we'll try to do that a little bit today. But first off, the FY22 continuation app, that is due first. I mean, that's due on May 26th. So we're talking about a week from tomorrow. And that's priority number one right now, because that deadline, there's no exceptions. I mean, if you don't have that application in by noon next Wednesday, I mean, there is no FY22. You know, you won't be funded. It's over. So this is, while this report is very important for the data and everything, it's not as important as that continuation app. So that's what you should be focused on first and foremost, and make sure you get that in. And I'm going to send out a few reminders about that. And please continue to send your questions. I've already had a lot of questions about the continuation app, and continue to send me those. And I will try to get back to you as quickly as possible. I'm definitely not all caught up from the questions from yesterday and today, but I think I got caught up over the weekend from questions from last week. So if you asked me a question before yesterday and I still haven't answered you back, then send it my way again, because I must have missed it somehow. But I'm trying to get caught up on those questions as quickly as possible. So next Wednesday by noon, May 26th, make sure that continuation app is submitted, because that is the utmost importance.
Are all those attachments due with that app again, like before?
Absolutely. Yes, they are. Unfortunately, they are, but yes. And the budget in CSA. Now, it might not be correct, but you know, a lot of times you're going to have to amend your budget, but there needs to be something in CSA.
And CSA has a button that says roll over budget. Does that mean that that rolls over the budget that you previously had?
Well, it should. I'm not a CSA expert, but it should. And I don't see all the features that you guys see. You know, we just look at it from a review standpoint. But yeah, that's what should happen.
Okay.
Does anyone else know? Has anyone else tried that? Because I know some people have had grants with us for years and years.
I mean, we'll have some changes, but if that button gave us a start, you know, and it.
Right. Oh, sure. Definitely.
Yeah. I was scared
Okay.
because I was going to ask you first. Is that what that is? The rollover budget?
Yes, it is.
That
It
is?
just,
Oh.
yeah, it just takes the year and move it to the next year,
And
to
all
the
the
future year. And then you can, yes, and you can just update it if you want to make changes.
Wonderful. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay, good. Yes, thank you. Trevor. Okay, so then moving on to the due date for this, the PPR. I know that June 1st that people wanted some more time. I did ask, and the due date will stay the same for now. It's going to be June 1st. If you need to, please reach out to me. And if you need some extra time, that can be a possibility. But we're leaving it for June 1st for a couple reasons. One, there's only a month of the program left. I mean, after June 1st, you guys are done June 30th with the year, and then there's going to be, you know, an end of the year report and the fourth quarter due. And then the other thing is that eventually I'm going to have to look at these and everything, and that weekend of June 4th is probably going to be about the only time I have to look at the majority of these. So I'm going to need them as many of the PPRs submitted as possible on time. Now, like I said, if you need, I know there's some of you that have over 100 youth you're serving, you have all 4 categories, and there's, you know, a lot to complete. And I know this thing's long because I just went through the whole thing today when I was trying to mock up this sample for you. So just reach out if you need some extra time, and that won't be a problem. And like I said, if anything, get that continuation app done first, because I don't want anyone to not get that in on time. So this PPR at the top, we can't go through all of it today, obviously, but I'm just going to touch on some important points or things that you might need help with, and then let you ask questions, because I haven't had a lot of questions yet of the PPR, because I'm guessing because people haven't had time to work on it yet. So most of the questions will probably come closer to the due date. But
Brandon,
yes.
Brandon, I'm going to post this sample along with the blank PPR on the partner site as well.
Okay. And let me just say, this sample, I only did category 2 only because we have most people are doing category 2. That's the most popular category. And I didn't have time to go through all categories. I understand that some people will be filling out all 4 categories. But I only did category 2 for the sample. So you won't find anything in category 1, 3, or 4. So in the category 2 tab, just so you know, at the top, the grantee name, well, I apologize because right off the bat, this is not right. You want your name in here, like your agency name, like if you're Urbana Neighborhood Connection Center, the grantee name, that's not the name of this person filling it out. So I apologize for that. Okay, and then the rest of this stuff, a lot of this you can get from CSA. So your DUNS number, of course, your FEIN, you probably know that anyway, but you can get these in CSA. Some people go by a different name for your program name than what is your official name with the contract. So you can put that in the program name. Okay, here, the program contact. This is important because a lot of people will put down their executive director, and I'll put that in my email search, and I've never had any contact with, this person that they put in here. So it's definitely not the person who was filling this out. So when I need to contact someone about a question, like who was filling this out, I need a contact person for this PPR. So that's who I need in this program contact. So it's not necessarily your program director, your executive director, or your budget person. It's the person that is doing this PPR. Who's your PPR person? That's who I need here, and their email and phone number, so we can correspond about this. Okay, the grant number is your contract number. Again, you can find that obviously on your contract in CSA, but it's that everyone starts with FCS ZP. And then the 0, and then you'll have 4 numbers that are unique to you after that. Everyone will put this agreement period because the weird COVID year, of course, we couldn't have a normal July to June. It's September 1st, 2020 through June 30th, 2021. That's the agreement period. Now, this is important and somewhat confusing because I guarantee you'll never do a report for us again that goes from September 1st to March 31st. That's not a normal reporting period. But since we're getting this so late in the year, and again, we apologize for that. But we do have one now, and for the next couple of years, we will have a PPR to use and learn, and we'll all improve at. It'll be this same format for the next 2 years. Your report start date for this time only will be September 1st, 2020, the start of the grant, and your report end date, again, like discussed in the quarterly meeting, will be March 31st. So that's your report start date and end date there. In the drop down, of course, this is FY21. Okay, the quarter, since this September to March is not a normal term, it is not Q1, Q2, or Q3. It is other. And we will put in the dates. I checked on this earlier today with a couple people who created this report, and we can't put the dates in the drop down. So we're gonna have to go with other would be the most correct answer, and then we'll put in dates for this report. You don't have to worry about that. So just please put other. And then in the county, this is not the county you're located, actually. I mean, they could be both the same, but it's the county or counties that you're serving. And then finally, and then I'll take questions. This is your service area. So from your notice of state award or the NOSA, and in your contract, I believe it's also, yeah, I'm pretty sure it's also listed in your contract is what is your service area? So what communities are you serving, or county or counties that you're going to serve? Okay, any questions on this top part?
Brandon, what was the piece that you said you had to change, not just change my copy?
Oh, naming your agency, because I accidentally had name a person filling this out. I'm the very first row 5.
Okay,
The very first box, I made a mistake on that.
okay.
Hey, and Brandon, I'm sorry, I'm listening, but I want to clarify to make certain. In terms of our end date, I know you're doing category 2, but for category 1, are we June 30th, or do we also select?
No, great question. Excellent question. Everyone will put in this because this is for the report period.
Okay,
Report start date and report end date. So it has nothing to do with your categories. You could be
Okay.
doing all 4 categories. You could be doing category 1. You could be doing category 3 only. It's still going to be September 1st through March 31st.
okay, thank you.
And that's something people are going to turn in wrong, it's fine. We just, I'll email you back and we'll get it corrected, but that's what needs to be in there.
All right, Brandon, we got a couple of questions in the chat.
Okay.
It says, can we serve beyond our county as long as they are a resident of Illinois, or is it grant specific?
It's grant specific.
And then another question is, the office is asking me if we count the carryovers in the exit list.
The carryovers.
Now, okay, so can you clarify that question for me, please? Do you mean the ones that came from CSYEP, or the ones that are going to be going from category 1 to category 2, say? And then another question, category 1 is summer, so we shouldn't be submitting that, correct? Well,
No, okay, so good question. Everyone will submit a PPR because it's part of your contract. I understand that there's at least 9 of you, I believe, that are only doing category 1, so you won't have any data to report because you probably haven't done any programming yet, and we know that. But just like the EDFs, you have to submit an expenditure report every month, even if you have 0 expenditures. The PPR is the same way. Because that is part of GATA and the reporting and just the requirements and of the grant. So you have to submit a PPR even if you have 0 thing to report in the blanks. You just put in zeros, and then in the narratives you put, summer programming only, this does not apply, or whatever statement, like Carrie went over that in the quarterly meeting. You just put the same statement in every box. But you do need to turn in a category 1 report. Everyone needs to turn in a report. And I've already received 3 or 4 at least that are just category 1s.
Wait, so even if we've never even did summer before, we won't be doing it until this upcoming summer, we still need to?
Yes. Yes,
Okay.
everyone will turn in a PPR.
And those report start and end dates are what?
September 1st through March 31st. So
it's the
if you're doing
same.
category 1 only, you most likely don't have any data to report.
Oh, so that'll be easy, Daryl.
No, because I'm understanding I have to do category 2 because that's what we've done. But I'm gonna do it again for category 1 and use the reporting period that is not summer, even though this is a summer specific category.
So the reporting period is calendar date to calendar date. It's not contract specific. So your summer program may span 2 program years because it's ending in PY21 and continuing in PY22.
So the dates are
report-
September 1 to March 31st.
Correct.
Okay.
Right.
Okay.
And I got a definition on the carryover, Brandon. It's people that were in CSYEP that are now in this program.
Okay, and that's what I'm glad you brought that up. That's one of the most common questions I've been getting. And so any youth who were in a previous youth employment program, CYEP or CSYEP, if they are enrolled in IYIP, they're all new youth. So just forget about any previous grant program. Everything starts over on September 1st. And with the enrollment in IYIP, they have a fresh set of subsidized time. Their subsidized employment starts over, and it doesn't matter if they were enrolled in with another grant with you guys, with your agency before September 1st or before IYIP. So everyone who enrolls in IYIP is just treated like a new youth, a new enrollment. And that's the only people we want reported on here is people that are in IYIP, no matter if they were in another program before or not.
But Dee, could I just ask, were you able to see whether or not, even if they were enrolled in CSYEP, their information, some of it would be able to still populate over into the new application, or everything's just kind of wiped out? Because even though they were in the WorkNet system prior to us putting them in this year.
Right. So if they fill out a new application, they were in last year's program, a lot of their information will populate. It may be wrong, but it should populate.
Okay, and that was our problem. So we'll just call you back because I don't want to take up this time with that. We'll call you individually. Thank you.
Excuse me. Thank you, Janice. Yes, and that goes for a lot of you too that will have a lot of questions about the PPR, and that is totally fine. This is a brand new program. This is a brand new report. We definitely have never had 4 spreadsheets before, and nothing's ever been done like this in DHS or any, I mean, this is brand new and it's very complex and complicated. So if you have several questions, do not feel bad. Get in touch with me, send me an email, and even if we'll get on the phone and I'll pull up the PPR on this end and you pull yours up and we'll go through it if we need to. So just don't wait till June 1st, please. But I will be happy to answer your questions individually too, because we won't have time today to get to everybody's questions, I'm sure. Okay, were there any more questions on this top part?
Brandon, I actually had a question if you have time.
Yes.
Okay, so I had previously emailed you about the youth who worked with us in the summer for 8 weeks in July and August, and they finished their third month with the remaining 4 weeks in the month of September. So would they technically be counted in that quarter beginning in September.
What category are you doing for IYIP?
We would be doing category 4, I believe, because we have a contract for all year round with the kids.
Okay, so if any youth enrolled in September or after September 1st and before March 31st, then they would be counted. But anything that was part of that other program, CSYEP, I'm guessing, that, you know, that doesn't count. We've already done reports for that.
Correct. Well, because they worked in that month of September, count them, include them, correct?
If as long as they were enrolled in IYIP,
Okay.
you wouldn't count them for that other program.
Because I believe that funding came from the summer, but they finished out their 12 weeks going into the month of September. And that's also the same group that didn't have the same Casey life skills that was drawn up later on. They didn't have access to that because we didn't get it till later in the middle of the year. So
Okay.
that's why it was questionable for us to see if we include them or if we don't include them, because they did work in the quarter of September, but they were just finishing out what they were the remainder of their summer, and that had to do with circumstances because of the COVID.
Right. And thankfully, going forward, it's only going to be one program to report on, because at one time we had 3 programs going on at one time. So it made this complex IYIP with 4 categories, it made it even more difficult. So going forward, it'll be less confusing. But the simplest answer to your question is, if the youth was enrolled in IYIP between those dates of September 1st and March 31st, you would report on them. But if they were not, then no. Not just because they were with your agency in the month of September. They have to be enrolled in IYIP.
Got it. Okay. Appreciate that clarification.
And I know it's super confusing this past year because of a bunch of reasons, but hopefully going forward, it's going to be easier.
Got it.
Okay, any other questions on this top?
Let me look. Anthony says, so when we close clients in IYIP that were previously in Illinois WorkNet, well, they're still going to be in Illinois WorkNet no matter what. Will we lose their information from the clusters and other information? No, that information stays in the data. It's just that you're closing them out as an active participant. You can still make edits in their profile, on their career plan, all of that kind of stuff. It just means that you've closed them out as of such and such a date. So if you need to play catch up, not KETCHUP, but if you need to catch up on their files, that was a joke. You all were supposed to be laughing.
I chuckled.
Thank you, Brandon. Or do you spell it catsup? So anyway, my point is you can follow up with those things at any point in time. Thank you, Tracy. It's bad when you laugh at your own jokes, you know?
No, it's not. Okay, so can I move on probably?
Yes.
Because we got a long way to go. And I'm not going to get through all of this, but I just want to point out a few things. Okay, so this is something I definitely want to point out because of this is very similar to the reporting we did in the last program, that CSYEP that we've already been talking a little bit about. And I apologize because like half of you are new, you weren't part of the program before FY21, and half of you were. So, but this is something that was pretty similar, and I had a lot of mistakes on. Okay, I just tried to use like easy numbers for an example. Okay, so on my IYIP application, I proposed to serve 50 youth. So that's where this number comes from. So I put in 50 there. From September 1st up through March 31st, I only had 10 youth referred, but I registered them in Illinois WorkNet. They went through the application and everything, and they were all eligible and they were all enrolled. So that's where I get those. And remember, we're only talking about up through March 31st. Everything since March 31st, you'll be reporting on next time. Okay, so this is where I found a lot of mistakes on the old programs report, was that you didn't account for all the youth in the breakdown of the age groups and the genders. So if I've got 10 youth enrolled, then I need to have 10 down here also. Same for the race and ethnicity section. So we need to match up on those. So please check yourself to make sure you got all the youth accounted for. And then the other common thing I saw was, and we talked about this in the last quarterly meeting, so I won't spend a lot of time on this, but we need to try to report all of these risk factors or eligibility factors that apply to the youth you enrolled. So anything you know, so here, for example, I had 10 that I enrolled, but, and I forget this doesn't calculate, but I think there was like 40 something eligibility factors, because most youth who enroll in IYP and with our past youth employment programs usually have 2, 3, 4 more eligibility or risk factors. And a reminder, if you know it to be true, like they may not tell you that they're pregnant, but you know that they're pregnant. I mean, you can report that. Okay, so it doesn't have to be self-identified by the youth. If you, the staff member that's working with the youth, you know it to be true, you can report it also. All right, any questions about this portion? And remember, this is only the ones you enroll up through the March 31st.
Nobody has typed anything, Brandon.
Great.
I'd rather unmute myself. I have a question. I have a question. So these specific numbers you're asking for, there is a way to go on Illinois WorkNet and run these specific reports, right? So we're just like, on one screen we have the PPR and the other screen we have Illinois WorkNet. We would just, that would be
that is the end.
That's the end goal. That's the end goal, but we're in the process of building that right now.
Okay, so
it's a process. It's a work in progress, because this report was just built. Remember.
So yeah, so in my mind, I have to go in Illinois WorkNet and open everyone's individual profile and enter whatever their risk factors are, one by one. Oh my God.
No, you don't have to do that, Daryl. You don't have to do that. If you go down to the in Illinois WorkNet, in the group, on the customer group, there's a search.
Oh, with the different color bars.
Right, and you go to the search and then it'll list it. But the only bad part about it, we can't do it by quarter. You can't do it monthly. It just gives you everybody.
Which is fine at this point, because that's all I have is everyone that I've served. This is new. So lucky me, right? Is that what you're saying?
So you can export that list. Unfortunately, it does not export all of the situations.
Mm-hmm.
You mean the
and the situations are what you're trying to find right here.
Right, but so, I mean, even like the section above this, like the demographic and not just the risk factors, but the section just above the eligibility and referrals.
Brandon, scroll up.
Yeah, just a little bit. This stuff, so like their age. Am I going to go open each profile and see their birthday?
I think you can export a list with date of birth in it, and export a list of your customers with the date of birth. When Brandon's done explaining the form, let's go see what we can try to find.
Yes, okay, thank you.
Okay, and something else, while people are thinking of questions, they said this at the quarterly meeting, but I wanted to point it out again. Remember, you're only, because we've got the multiple columns here, you're only doing the FYTD, which is the fiscal year to date. So that's all you're worried about, because it's the reporting period of, up through March 31st, which is a partial fiscal year. It's not a quarter. So if you're doing a quarterly report, you would use these other columns, but you're not doing a quarterly report, really. You're not doing a 3-month normal quarter report.
Brandon, George, I got one quick question. Can you go back up to your numbers of your people are? Yeah, up there, right there. Now, people referred to the program and people enrolled may be 2 different numbers, correct? Just in this instance, you got them at 10.
Yeah, correct. Yes, definitely. Correct.
Okay. Okay.
The referred by, if you notice that total number of youth referred to the program by DHS local FCRC office, that's what the referred by means. Meaning you're getting them from DHS, not that a church in your neighborhood referred them to you or another agency referred them to you.
Right, but like line 17 that says total number referred, that number may be larger, but we didn't enroll all the people that were referred. So those are numbers, right?
Correct.
All right, cool. All right. Thank you.
So that number is probably the total number of applicants.
Yes.
Like the applications that were completed, but then
Absolutely.
How many of them did you actually enroll?
That's right, Dee. Right.
I have a question, Brandon.
Yes.
Of course, COVID hit a lot of us hard. And so there will be no numbers for up until March 31st. But my question is, are there areas in this PPR where you can put outcomes of why you have no numbers?
Yes. That'll be, it's in the very bottom.
Okay.
But I'm getting to that. But I just had a few things to show you first. And then, yes, there's narrative sections in the bottom where you can explain. And this year you're going to have a very good reason for, if you have low percentages, whatever.
Okay.
And we do have a comment from Sabrina. She said that those of you who sent the spreadsheet for the updated situations to me, that will give you some of the customers that were included after, Sabrina, was it after March 2nd or after?
I think it was March 2nd or 1st.
It was those customers that came into the system before a certain date. Okay, so those were September until March, but I can't remember the date in March. So that will help you with some of your list. And Daryl's talking to Makia because he doesn't know which one it is.
No. I think it was the beginning of March because I remember us trying to get our last cohort from category 2 enrolled prior to the 31st so that we only could have to deal with just a certain number of people.
Right.
Yeah, we're over here figuring it out.
All right. Okay, go ahead, Brandon. Sorry for the interruption.
Okay. No, it's fine. Because there's only a couple more things, and then I was just going to take general questions. Okay, I believe this section is pretty self-explanatory, but I guess while I'm on, I can just take, is there any questions on the, like, what youth have completed section? It's pretty straightforward, I think, but if there's any questions on it.
Hey, Brandon, I just want to ask to make certain.
Yes.
Even if for category 1 and you have 0 pretty much up to, the March date, do we need to go through every area and make certain that we put 0 in all of those areas?
Yes, please just go zeros straight down.
Yeah. Okay,
Yes, yes, please. Because sometimes I'll pull up, there's so many of these reports that I'm going to get. And sometimes I'll pull one up, and if I can just look at it real quick and see that I know that it was completed that way. If it's just blank, I might look at that section and think, oh, they didn't turn this in.
okay, thank you.
Okay, so there's a portion on here about, and we haven't had this before, about discharged youth. So many of you might not have any youth that have been discharged, and this would only be youth that they would have to at least be enrolled one day, but then maybe they never showed back up, or whatever. I mean, something went wrong. They couldn't continue with you in the program. So I mean, that could be a discharged youth, but you might not have any discharged youth. And this has come up in the past, and you know, people worry about if they have a bunch of zeros in the discharge, and there's nothing wrong with that. So a lot of you might not have any discharged youth as of March 31st, and that's completely fine. And again, you would put in zeros, but that's just a common question. It seems like I always get, people are worried about if they don't have any discharged youth, because that is all this is asking about. So again, like Wendy, who was doing this portion in the quarterly meeting, was talking about, make sure you read the whole thing, and the hints and the instructions and everything, because this only pertains to discharged youth. And I may know that I've enrolled 15 youth, but they're all still with me. So I mean, I just put zeros in here and skip over it.
Okay, so we got a youth like youth who may have gotten themselves incarcerated or something after they had enrolled in
Right.
so they would be considered discharged.
Yes.
I mean, because they're no longer in there in the program.
Well, not necessarily. They could be inactive depending on how long they're going to be
No,
incarcerated.
that's true.
Okay.
Sorry, don't mean to.
No, that's true, D. That's right. Because a lot of times, yeah, I mean, if they're,
Well, if the time isn't going to be long enough, so it's for us to make that decision which one we want to note them as, right, D?
right, especially if you're doing categories 2, 3, or 4, because I mean, you're talking about, you've got 9 to 12 months. I mean, 9 months with category 2 and
Right.
12 months with 3 and 4, and
Okay.
possibly they could be with you for longer if they're doing unsubsidized employment. I mean, it's, yeah, so it may not be a discharged youth. You could keep them, like Dee was saying, just make them inactive.
Okay. Is there an inactive section there? Is that one?
On the career plan, there is inactivity for the subsidized dates.
Without the plane and
I mean, work's got to be done. On this form, Brandon, is there an inactive line?
Okay.
Yeah. Because I wouldn't know how to categorize them.
I'm sorry, I heard a lot of background. I didn't know it did. Was there another question?
Yes, I said, on this form, is there an inactive line just as there is a other line like you just showed us?
No, there is not on this report. You would just make them inactive in WorkNet. As far as for this, you wouldn't count them as a discharged youth.
Okay. All right.
Unless you just absolutely know
They're
that
not going to be able to
they're
come
not
back.
going to be coming back.
And George, the inactivity only counts for their subsidized days.
Okay.
So if they're just sitting out there and they're not earning any subsidized employment, you can choose to discharge the youth.
Okay.
But you do need to, if they're going to come back, you need to make them inactive on their subsidized wage in their career plan.
Yes, they didn't get to the point of even working yet.
Okay,
So-
so then you can let them just sit there for a while.
Okay, all right. Thank you.
Okay, also this section, and as goes for the whole report, make sure you read carefully line by line, because A, B, and C, that's all discharged youth. And then, the very next number 15 and 16 are not. So this doesn't have anything to do with discharged youth. So make sure you read each line, because, well, no, it doesn't really jump around, but it just, there's no spaces in some of this where it looks like it could be jumbled together. Okay, and I think this was pretty much straightforward. Okay, on the employment placements, so if you have placed a youth, at a job, even if it's one day, and it even says at least one day, then, that is going to count as a placement. So if it's one day, if it's 130 days, it's still a placement. So all of that would be counted in this section. I think it's pretty straightforward. Other than that, make sure you look at the subsidized and non-subsidized, because that's all broken down here. And these I put out to the side because they should match up with 24C and 24D. I was about to say rows 136 and 137, but these should match. That's why I put this out to the side. Is there any questions about placements or what should go in this section?
We have youth that started as subsidized, but they were offered a position and became unsubsidized. And the work site started paying their pay for their employment. Would they go in both spots, or?
You mean counted?
Yeah, like in both spots.
Brandon, I think there's actually a line for that.
Well, yeah, it would definitely be counted. They'd either be in number 26 or number 27, depending on if they were part-time or full-time. But then I think he's asking if they would be counted here. And we don't want to count them twice. So I would count them wherever they started, wherever they began, as long as you don't count them twice. Because again, we want to make sure I've got 9 youth to replace. I don't want to have 11 or 12 down here. But then they would fit into here. Either they started off subsidized part-time, or they started off subsidized full-time and then went to non-subsidized. That's what number 26 and 27 asks.
So Brandon, can we get a little bit of clarification on that? Because if they did that within the same quarter, wouldn't you want to count it as the converted to non-subsidized? Because that's a better outcome than just the subsidized. That's what your legislators are looking for.
Right. They would be counted here.
Yeah, instead of up above. So if Daryl's youth comes in and he's subsidized for 2 weeks and started February 14th, subsidized for 2 weeks, converts to unsubsidized by February 28th, and is still working at that as unsubsidized, I would think that the better outcome would be that row 26 or 7, whichever it is.
Well, it'd be both though. Are you saying, okay, so saying they're full-time subsidized?
Whichever, full-time or part-time, whichever.
Yeah. So then he would be in row 136, this 24C here. That youth would be counted, and then it would be counted again down here in number 27.
Oh, so in both places. Okay.
Right. Because
Okay, okay,
here we have to account for the placements, and here we have to account for the placements that were converted.
okay. Does that make sense to everybody?
But it
Okay.
can't, the 9 is gonna exceed the 9 then, right?
No.
In both.
Well, you've got,
If it's one person that has done 2 things, then you could exceed the total amount of youth at least
well,
one.
no, because only of that 5 that started as subsidized would they convert. Because you can't convert from non-subsidized to non-subsidized.
Okay, okay. All right, well, I'll wait till I get to that point and ask Brandon that.
Yes, please do. Yeah, if you have more than like say you had 10 youth who were placed, and then somehow you're coming up with more than 10, let me know, because I'm not sure how that would. Yeah, just ask me.
All right, Lorena's asking, do we count a discharged youth in the youth accepted also? For instance, if we enrolled 10 but discharged 1, do we count 10 as enrolled and 1 discharged, or 9 enrollment and 1 discharged?
10 enrolled. You still enrolled 10. Even if they were just enrolled for 1 day, I mean, they would still count it as enrollment.
She says, thanks.
Okay, that was an easy one. Okay, the next portion there is, this is where you've got to work with your fiscal people. And I understand that in most agencies, the program person or the person that is completing this PPR is not going to be the same person that is doing your monthly expenditure reports. In some cases it will be, and if it is, that'll make your job a lot easier, because you're going to have to get this from your fiscal person. You should have all your subsidized information, and if not now, then eventually they'll be able to get that from WorkNet, right, Dee?
If
The
what?
subsidized.
Say it one more time, please.
How much subsidized wages they're paying, how many youth are in a subsidized job, and how much they're getting paid.
We're not tracking the wages, we're only tracking the time.
Okay, so they'll be able to get this one, the number of youth receiving a subsidized wage, which you probably know that anyway.
Yes.
Okay, so in my example, I've got 5 youth, and they each made 4,000. So I just made it easy. I knew their average was $15 an hour because I went with I got them all maxed out. They're all earning $15 an hour, and then the total here. But you're going to have to get this from your fiscal person. You should be able to do it with this first one.
We might
because
be able to get that calculated, Brandon. If it's
Okay.
averages, we might be able to get that calculated in the final piece.
Okay, and unlike before when I had people doing monthly reports and you're waiting for your fiscal person, sometimes some people wait till like the last day to submit their expenditure report. This is only through March 31st, so that was due April 30th, the expenditure report. So everyone should have this through March 31st from your fiscal person. Okay, and then in my example, I had 4 youth that were earning unsubsidized wages, and so that calculated also out to 20,000, and their average was a little higher. It was unsubsidized, and they ended up making a little more. And then here's where you report the incentives. Youth can earn more than 1 incentive. I just tried to make it easy. 9 youth earning 1 incentive for $50 would be $450. Okay, but this is where you're gonna have to plan ahead a little bit, and you can't wait till Tuesday, June 1st to ask your fiscal person if you need all this information. Is there questions about this portion? This is
Bernard has a question. Bernard
Okay.
has a question. You want to unmute yourself, Bernard?
Yeah, so let's say that we're working with an employer that is going to pay $18 an hour. And we subsidize, up to $15 an hour. then would we need to report that $3 extra under the unsubsidized as the number of youth under unsubsidized wages? Like, how does that factor into this part of the report?
Okay, great question. Well, that would definitely figure into 28B here, this line 150, because that is subsidized wage. The part I'm thinking about, I'm gonna have to write this down and ask about this because they technically could be earning both a subsidized and an unsubsidized wage. I'm thinking they're going to be reported here because mainly they're earning an unsubsidized, but let me ask and see what the higher ups want for that, for sure.
But the $15 is subsidized. They're only getting $3.
Oh, okay.
unsubsidized.
Okay, then I'm sorry. I heard it the other way around.
You had dyslexic hearing?
Yeah, I was trying to put in something here in my spreadsheet while I was thinking about it. Yeah, so it would be the other way around. If they're earning $15 subsidized, I would report them here as counting the number of youth. But and that no matter what, the subsidized money would have to be reported on line 150. But then you're probably not going to report them here, but I'm going to double check on that. I would
so
say
we don't need to report them twice.
Right. I would just report them here, but I'm going to double check on that.
Okay, so just report them so does that mean that we're only reporting the unsubsidized wage?
No. And
No,
in fact,
so we are, yeah, so we're reporting
see where it says
both.
you're reporting both, but if you know it. So if they're working for an employer and which I'm not sure why you wouldn't know their wage, but
right.
It says if known.
So Brandon, an example could be they went out and got a job. They're not doing the employment verification. And so maybe they're getting $18 an hour now, but you thought when they got hired, they were only making $14 an hour.
Yeah, that's a good example. And then also I was just thinking that doesn't have to be reported in WorkNet either because it's not subsidized.
Right.
They have the ability to report it.
Right.
We don't require the payroll upload on unsubsidized.
Yeah, so for example, I got an employer that's going to pay $20 an hour. And we're going to subsidize up to $15 an hour. So that extra $5 would get reported in 153.
Correct.
Okay.
And Bernard, I bet you're going to have to put some narrative stuff in your report.
Thank you.
All right, any other questions?
I'm noting that. That's a good question. I'm noting that because I'm going to check on that. It's a partially subsidized wage.
I remember that happening with that agency in Bloomington.
Mm-hmm.
Only they just paid it as an expense rather than reporting it as the payroll. But it was much harder to track that way.
Yes, definitely. And then you can see I have all zeros on this because I didn't discharge any youth during the period. And here's where you do your employment, the name of your employers and how many youth you had placed. It's pretty self-explanatory. And then I wanted to go down to the bottom where I believe it was Kate that was asking earlier. This is your narrative. So like here I have a 20%, so I'm gonna have to look at like exactly what this is. Okay, because I had 50 youth that I was proposed to serve. Well, it's only through March 31st, so I'm not freaking out or panicking or anything because there's still 3 more months to report on, and I could still easily get to 50 youth. So, I mean, I could explain because of the pandemic or because of the restrictions and the industries I was trying to place the youth in were hit hard with COVID. I wasn't able to place that many youth yet. And I mean, this is where you can explain and put in a narrative. And again, if you're category 1, you haven't served any youth yet, like Carrie said at the quarterly meeting, if you would just please, I mean, just whatever simple state, it could be like 5 words, whatever, like summer only does not apply, and just copy paste, just put something in here. So again, we know that, that you've submitted a report.
Brandon, oh, sorry, Dee.
If they're category 1 only, do they need to fill out category 2 and 3 and 4?
No, definitely no. But this is in category 1.
Oh, okay.
This is the same for every category as far as there's narratives for every category at the bottom.
All right, go ahead, Kate.
This section of any of this, the PPR report in general, does it, do they take this report into consideration when looking at the grant applications, or are they being looked at as 2 separate pieces? And so you should try and find areas within the grant to also talk about how COVID affected everything.
I think, okay, so if you're asking, does this affect the continuation application for FY22, that answer would definitely be, that would be a no. It won't matter for that.
So I know it's different, we're talking about the PPR report now, but there's no specific area in the grant to report about COVID. You just try and use areas within the grant to talk about the same things that you would write here in the performance measures?
For the continuation app,
yes.
I mean, there's a place for like in your program plan and in your executive summary, there's places where you could talk about it.
Okay.
And again, if you're not sure, look at the funding notes and email me about that, because I can look, but there's some areas where you can address that.
Okay. Thank you, Brandon.
Okay, any more questions?
LaDon is asking number 3940. So I think that would be item number 39.
And probably 40.
Right. Is this specific to enrolled or discharged youth?
This is only enrolled.
LaDon, is that the section that you were talking about? Rose 3940?
No. Thank you, Dee. No, I was referring, I'm sorry, to questions 39 and 40.
Down near the bottom, Brandon.
A bit further down, yes.
Oh, right there. Whoop.
Question 39 and 40.
Yeah, I just saw it and you were a mad clicker there. Right there.
Oh, okay,
right there.
Okay. Number 39, number of youth who did not earn any wages, stipend, or incentives during enrollment. Okay, so like I did 10 in my example. I enrolled 10, had 10 referrals, whatever, and I enrolled 10 youth, but I had one guy that just left after a few days, whatever, and didn't do anything. So that would be the one person right here. So they did not earn any wages. I mean, they didn't do anything. They didn't do any WorkNet stuff, any Casey Life Skills, nothing. But they definitely didn't earn any wages. So that's where that's what number 39 is asking about. It's possible to enroll someone and they never earn any wages or a stipend or an incentive.
Perfect. And so it didn't matter. We weren't reporting out specifically on people who we exited from the program. They could potentially still be in the program, but maybe their time has been paused and they haven't yet earned any wages, stipends, or incentives.
Right.
Okay,
Right.
gotcha.
Okay, and then number 40, or question 40 is number of youth who only earned unsubsidized wages during their enrollment. So that would be, youth who worked, who were placed, and they never earned a subsidized wage. It was all unsubsidized.
Perfect, thank you. I know in the questions above that, it was focusing primarily on youth who had been discharged. So I just wanted to make sure those last two questions, we weren't reporting out just on discharged youth. It was folks who are in the program and would fall into those.
You want to make
categories.
you want to make a note there, Brandon? I'll make a note on my copy. So it's discharged or not.
Oh, yes.
Thank you as always. Appreciate you.
No problem.
All right. Any other questions? And Brandon, do you have anything else to show, or did you finish it?
No, I finished. If there's any other questions, we might have a few minutes.
I've got 4 minutes till I have to be on another meeting.
I have a question. So the section where you were doing the percentages for the narrative, are those specific to the outcomes we stated we will reach in our grant contract, and we should update them because the form that we get or download is generic, right? Or is that stuff we will have to add in?
This form is generic.
Right, so we have to add, if you could scroll a little bit, Brandon, to the, oh no, not that part.
Where the narrative parts are, Brandon.
Yeah.
Oh, it's the very bottom.
Yeah, this. So how it says like 100% of youth will be placed in employment or a youth apprenticeship program. It says acceptable percentage, 90%. Is this 100%, 90%, and 20% all blank, or we're just based on our numbers, the percent who?
This auto populates, if that's what you're asking.
Oh, based on the information we put in up top.
Correct.
Oh, and so this part we're only doing writing little short narratives.
Correct. Yes,
Okay.
good question. Yeah, this 20% came from my, I proposed 50 youth, I enrolled 10, which is 20%. That's where
Okay.
this came from.
Okay.
And then I would just put in a narrative as to, COVID, shortage of jobs, what just explain.
Okay.
Hi, Brandon. This is John Long on a general question before you leave. Have you sent all the approvals back for the grants that we are doing now? In other words, the changes we requested.
Oh, the budget revisions?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
No, Nicole will be sending those to you, and she is not. No, she got a bunch right at the end, and and then we had this quarterly meeting, this new report, everything else going on. So no, she's trying to process those as soon as possible, but you should hear back soon.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, what budget revision? Hey, what big budget revision was that one we were just talking about? Because I've submitted them to fiscal, all that I had, and there should be a notification that you can go into TSA to update and submit for review and signatures from us. But you have to put your numbers and everything into CSA. You haven't been notified by CSA yet?
No.
No, John had no, because I know that Nicole has not had time to process them all yet.
Which provider is that speaking?
LMW.
Nicole, what was the question you asked? And you've got the sound on your laptop and on your phone.
No, I'm not on my phone, just my laptop.
All right, so
I
then
mean,
how am I
just
hearing
my
you?
desktop. Huh?
I'm hearing myself talking.
Oh, well, you can email me. I'll email you, but I sent you an email on 5/11 in regards to yours. LMW group.
Okay. Okay, thank you.
Okay, you submitted for an increase, but we're not allowing any. I know if it was not previously approved, we're not allowing any increases in your budgets.
No, we didn't say increase. We just.
That's
moved
what
the-
it looked like on the in the workbook that you sent.
Okay.
So you can email me and we'll talk.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, please
Just-
email Nicole if you have any budget revision questions. If you have any questions about the continuation app or the PPR or anything else, please let me know. I know, Dee, you got to get going too, right?
Yeah. Bernard, I want to just read a couple other things. LaDon says, thank goodness it auto calculates. I remember the old days when it didn't. Thanks for that, Brandon. And then Bernard has a quick question. And Bernard, it's about what is CSA? And if you can tell us where you saw that reference.
What is CSA? That's where you enter the budget and where your contract information, everything is kept. Someone should know at your agency what CSA is though, or you wouldn't, I mean, you wouldn't be doing this grant if you didn't have access to CSA. Someone has it.
Okay. All right, everybody. I got the worksite agreement template posted. I got the blank PPR document posted to the partner page. They're both at the bottom of the page under the middle column on the full list of resources. I will get this sample document up after my 4 o'clock meeting. All right, and then Daryl's asking, is it safe to submit the same number from the budget last year since no increases will be allowed? That was to Nicole.
Yep.
But Brandon, if you know the answer, that's fine.
Yes.
Yes.
All right, thanks, everybody. Have a
Thank you, guys.
great rest of your day. I'll get the video posted by tomorrow.
All right. Thanks, Dee.
Bye-bye.
Bye.